According to Tim Mundorf, National Sales and Training Agronomist for Midwest Laboratories, the high level of nitrates contained in water discharged from agricultural drainage tile lines has been a concern for decades. For his graduate research project, Tim sampled tile line discharge points in Iowa for nitrates and total phosphorus. In his research paper, he notes the water from the tile line discharge often contain nitrate levels exceeding the EPA maximum contaminant level goals of 10 parts per million. Tim joined us recently to explain his research and why it is important for producers to practice proper nitrogen and phosphorus management.
So what I did is, and this was in the height of the city of Des Moines lawsuit going into those drainage districts in northwest Iowa. So I went to our family farms, which are in western Iowa, to look at what our nitrate levels were in our discharge water coming from our tile lines. And what I did is I went in there and sampled them approximately monthly. It wasn't exactly monthly, but through the growing season in 2016, had to look at those numbers, talked to my graduate advisor, Dr. Charles Wortman, and he asked me to do that as a graduate project. So in 2017, I came back and did more sampling. So basically monthly, I'd go out there and pull samples, and during the time I'm out there pulling the samples, I would also take a 5-gallon bucket that I had a mark on for 3 gallons and use a stopwatch to time how long it would take me to collect 3 gallons. And I could do the math back for gallons a day, gallons a month, gallons per year, and taking those volumetric measurements every month, as well as taking the concentration measurements and taking those to the laboratory and have them analyzed.
Both phosphorus and nitrogen can impact drinking water quality. According to Tim, 38 out of 44 water sampling events were above the safe limit of public drinking water of 10 parts per million nitrate nitrogen. For phosphorus, Tim noticed it was less of a contributing factor than soil erosion from surface water. In addition, the difference between corn and soybean production also influenced Tim's results on nitrogen levels.
So the conclusions weren't what I thought. I really thought that by actively managing nitrogen, I could have an immediate impact on those tile line drainage numbers, and that really didn't seem to be the case. The tile line discharges under soybeans were a lot of times as high, sometimes even higher, than the tile line drainage discharge points coming from drainage under corn. So, even with 0 nitrogen applied in soybeans, which are pretty good at taking up nitrogen out of the soil that's mineralizing naturally, I still had high above that 10 part per million threshold concentrations of nitrate nitrogen. And under the corn acres that were receiving 150 to 200 pounds of applied nitrogen, there wasn't that much difference between the corn acres and the soybean acres. Now that begs the question of, well, how long does it take that applied nitrogen to get 4 to 6 feet deep, where these tile line collection points are bringing that water then out to our streams? And you could make the argument that probably has taken 3, 4, 5 years, so you really shouldn't expect immediate impact. So, there needs to be more research, and there already is some additional research out there. Another challenge I think we run into is just our cropping systems in general. So like corn bean rotation, we've got a crop that's actively growing mid and late summers when you're adding the most plant mass, you're bringing in the most nutrients. Well, before that, there's been already the application of nitrogen and a lot of mineralization of organic nitrogen and a lot of rainfall. And that disconnect between when we apply nitrogen and when nitrogen is mineralizing into nitrate and when we've got the rainfall that's going to move it through the system versus when we've got an actively growing crop that can bring it up. I think that's part of our problem. Maybe there's some potential to solve some of that with some cover crops, but we would need cover crops that we can get active growth, in the fall and in the early spring, so we can pull up some of that nitrogen and not have it as liable to leach. And then the bigger issue, I think, is just tile line drainage in general. Anytime you intercept that flow of water that's moving through the profile into groundwater and then push it out to surface water, you're intercepting it before it can filter as much of those nutrients away, especially nitrogen, and keep them from going into your surface water. Now, when you get into those sandier soils like we've got up in far northeast Nebraska, with those sandier soils, you can get that water moving through and into your deeper groundwater with your wells and your drinking water supplies easier than what we get with the silty clay soils that I was running with my projects.